Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you.
We'll call to order the Group Insurance Committee meeting at 4:06 p.m. today. We will start our first opening item, our second opening item is roll call. Rachel, can you please do roll call?
Sure. Jeff Bozzo,
Present.
Kaylee Krentz,
Present.
Robert Munson is absent. Gwen Partos,
Present.
Brenda Costello,
Present.
Mike Dixon is not here. Joseph Silvera,
Present.
thank you. And Eric Diamond is absent. We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. That moves us on to section 2 of our agenda, items for presentation, discussion, information, and/or action. Our first item is item 2.01, presentation and discussion of the Washoe County School District Group Insurance Claims Experience Report as of April 2025 for presentation and discussion only, and we have Lloyd Barnes from LP Insurance with us to go over this today. Hi, Lloyd.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lloyd Barnes, LP Insurance Services for the record. All right, we've got quite a bit of stuff to go over today, and I'm sure it'll be a lively conversation. We are going to start with our claims experience report for the month. Pretty standard, everyone should be fairly familiar with this. But what we have here is sorry, got to get to the first page. On our executive summary, again, looking at the first 4 months of the year, from an employee count standpoint, our employee counts are up about 3.5%, 3.3% at 7,400. Dependent units up about the similar amount, 3.2 at 2,300, and total dependents up about 2% at 4,500. So far for the first 4 months of the year, our claims costs are down a bit, about 12%, and also a composite claims cost is down, which is just the total claims cost divided by number of employees. Fixed costs are also down a bit at 320. Oh, I'm sorry. The total claims for the first 4 months was 5.8 million compared to the 6.7 million last year, and 788 for the first 4 months versus the 929 for 2024. For the fixed costs, as I said, they're down slightly as well at $321,000 versus $386,000 per month last year. For total planned costs at roughly $2 million per month for the first 4 months versus $7.1 million for last year, down about 13%. Total composite costs, that yields $831 versus the $983.33, so down about 15%. Again, we're very early in the year, so our large claims are still developing, and as is typical, we don't see a whole lot show up on this report at this time of the year. So we have one that has exceeded that $212,000 level. Going to the next page is our little graph here, and again, this is just sort of our visual representation of how the plan's running, and as we know and as we've seen, the overall rolling cost per rolling 12-month average cost per employee is up quite a bit from 2024, even though the cost per employee or cost for the first 4 months compared to the overall 12 months is down. When we look at a full 12 months, that changes everything. So it is hard to look at the first 4 months of the year and make any sort of real strong objective calls around that. We do have to look at a bit longer period of time. Moving on to Exhibit 3. Again, all plans combined, this sort of is our roll-up of our total cost for the month of April there. We'll just sort of focus on the month of April. Employee counts were 77460, dependent units at 2,300, and total dependents just under 4,500. For employee-only claims, on line 10 there, you can see our total cost for employees came in at $5.4 million for a total cost per employee of $728 per employee, and our cost for dependents on line 18 came in at 1.89 million, so total cost per dependent unit was 820. Rolling that all together on line 30, you can see there we had actually a very big April at 7.3 million for the month, and that yielded a composite cost per employee of 983. And as we add in our fixed cost down below of $322,000, that yields a total cost per employee for the month of April of $1,026.73. So even with that, we are still down, as we saw in the executive summary, at the 831.26 versus 983, down about 15% for the year, as we discussed. But we did see a very large April. And as we discussed in the first couple of months, those months were significantly lower than the average has been for the previous year. So we had a couple good months, and it has been trending negative since then.
Thanks, Lloyd. One question I have for you here is, when we're looking at these monthly costs, is this when the claim was paid or when the claim was incurred?
These are all on a paid claims basis, so
Okay.
all when the claim is paid. So these would be for claims 2-3 months ago, most
Okay.
likely.
Okay, all right, thank you for the clarification.
I will skip over the other exhibits, let you review those at your leisure, the breakout between the PPO and the HSA and active and retirees. We will move to Exhibit 12, which is our large claim. And as we see there, we do have the one large claim that is coming in at about $700,000 and almost $800,000 now. So very, very large claim, and these will start to show up and start to accumulate on our large claims reports as we move forward. So Exhibit 13 is basically what we would expect the plan to get back. About $360,000 should be coming back to the plan at some point for stop-loss reimbursements. That is the end of the claims report discussion. Any other questions?
Yeah, any questions for Lloyd on this item? No? Okay, we'll close out item 2.01, and then we're going to move up item 2.03 since Lloyd's at the table, and that's presentation, discussion, and possible action to provide a recommendation to the Board of Trustees of changes to the Washoe County School District's health plan for the 2026 plan year to include a premium rate increase of up to 10%. And this item is for possible action today. Lloyd's going to go over the rate setting process and how they determine the recommendation, and then talk more about the recommendation and options here. So Lloyd, I'll hand it off to you on this one.
All right, sounds good, Jeff. Thanks again, Lloyd Barnes, LP Insurance. Okay, so this is the time of year when we share with the committee the results of our underwriting analysis of the self-funded plan, and provide our recommendation for the group to consider for moving forward for proper funding of the plan as you move into 2026. For those of you that are newer to this process, the process is a mostly mathematical process, whereby we go and look at the most recent 12 months of experience, claims experience, for all the various components of your plan: medical, dental, prescription drugs. We then inflate that forward based on inflationary trends for healthcare expenses that are standard in our industry. We then add to it fixed costs to run the plan, the administrative costs for the third-party administration and network and such. And then we compare that to how much revenue the plan currently receives from both the district and from employees and retirees. And that difference, should there be one, which there often and usually is the projected increase that is needed in funding. This year, that number is coming in right around 10%. And we've we've looked at it a couple times now, and as we move forward to the time of the year when we actually have to present to you something so that we can make some decisions and move forward for 2026. We, as you saw, had a pretty rough April. We dropped off a fairly good April from 2024, and so that number has pretty consistently stayed right around 9-10%, and it's hovering now at that 10% mark. So our projection and recommendation to the district, to the district team, and then our collective recommendation to the committee is for consideration of moving forward with the 10% adjustment. As you can see here, the exhibit that is in front of you shows the 2025 current rates and then the projected 2026 rates with that 10% adjustment. It yields a slightly less than 10% overall cost change, just because there are a couple things that are not included in that 10% adjustment, life insurance, the gap plan, and such. So you can see there how the impact to the rates ultimately shakes out for each different category of employee. Obviously, the district would be picking up the majority of the cost, well, all of the cost for employees, but then there would be some pass-on cost for anyone who covers dependents, and then obviously retirees from that standpoint as well. But this is sort of the standard process we've gone through every year. Additionally, I don't know, Mackenzie, did the benefit change options get passed out to everyone? So within that, and as has been requested in previous years, especially given the significance of the projected increase this year, we did prepare a variety of plan benefit change options for consideration. And the way you would read this is, as you look at the different boxes, those are the different areas of expense, of benefit change that could be considered, and the corresponding financial impact to the plan. So just for review and exhibit purposes, you can see there for out-of-pocket. When you look at things that impact cost, the biggest things that impact costs on a benefits plan are deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, co-insurance, things like that. Things that are much less significant are things like doctor's visits. Those have a little bit less impact because you usually don't move those in real big chunks. So you can see there on option 1 under out-of-pocket max, the way you would read this would be for the current plan is set up with a $4,000 out-of-pocket max for an individual and a $8,000 out-of-pocket max for family. If you were to change that to a $4,500 out-of-pocket max per individual, $9,000 for family, and the little slash is just in-network or out-of-network, just for everyone's benefit. The projected savings of that type of change would be about $400,000, or roughly 0.5% to the plan. Okay, so you can just all of these can be looked at individually, and we try to do this in a way that it would be somewhat menu or cafeteria style. You could pick, option 1 of the out-of-pocket max and option 2 of the deductible, and you can essentially add those together to see what the overall financial impact of those types of changes would result in. So up above you have the PPO plan changes options, and then below you have HSA plan changes. Obviously the HSA plan changes are significantly less impactful because there's so much less enrollment on those plans. Okay. Happy to answer questions about that, questions about the rate change projection at this point, or just any other questions.
Thanks, Lloyd. Do we have any questions for Lloyd? Gwen?
When you said that you project forward and you look at inflationary trends, so not knowing specific guidelines, are you looking at a more conservative approach, or is it kind of like right in the middle?
So The word trend in the health insurance industry is a bit of a unique term, and we're all familiar with the concept of inflation, consumer inflation. Something that increases 2, 3, maybe 4% if we had a really bad inflationary year. In healthcare and in health insurance, it's a slightly different methodology. Trend is a accumulation of cost increases from providers, from doctors and hospitals as their costs go up, development of new procedures and new treatments, new medications, impact trend, and then just the reality of us all using more care because we're all getting older and need more care. So all of these things get smushed together, and it's put into the concept of inflationary trend for healthcare. So to your question of do we use a conservative or more conservative or more aggressive number in that, we try to focus on the district's actual trend number over the course of a multi-year period to project forward. And the reason we are able to do that is because you're big enough to be able to do that. Some of our smaller clients, 500,000 employees, we don't feel as confident with those numbers, and so we typically will use more national or regional trend numbers. With you, we use this time around, we're using a 5-year trend look back to say, what has your inflationary factors been for your plan for the last 5 years, and we're using those adjustments to be the factors that we apply from an inflationary standpoint.
And then a follow-up then, based on what you're telling me, just in case anyone's asking and for my own edification. So where do we compare to like national trends? Are we about on target?
Actually, a bit lower when we look at the 5-year trend. We're actually using a slightly lower than what the national average. If we were using the national average right now, are running about 7% for medical and 11% for prescription. So that would average out around 8.5% overall, which is high. We were quite a bit lower than that for you. We were using we used 5.4 for medical and basically 1 for pharmacy. So that was looking at that 5-year overall trend, because again, you did have some pretty good years where your trend inflation was not overly impactful. The last couple of years, it's been quite a bit more dramatic. So using that 5-year allowed us to smooth that out a little bit more. So quite a bit lower than what we would be using for most other clients.
Kaylee?
Kaylee Krenz for the record. I just having a wondering over here. When you're looking at these and you're determining the cost increase, are we only looking at the inflation, or are we looking at also other ways to find cost savings? For example, if we're in a position to renegotiate certain contract allowed amounts, or if there's really underutilized parts of the plan that we could pull from or get rid of certain aspects that are very underused to help offset the cost. Because I'm just curious, because looking at the cost increase, as somebody that has 6 dependents, I'm over here having a mini panic attack because it seems like a small amount when you look at like the overall percent, less than 1% or whatever. But when you look at the actual costs for our members, it'd be quite a bit. So I'm just curious as if that was part of I'm sure it was part of the research, or at least a fraction of it, but have we looked at other potential ways in which we can not increase by so much for members? Because especially with the economy the way it is, like you mentioned, and inflation going up, a huge cut like this and an increase of 10% when there's already going to have increases in other areas losing pay essentially. I'm just curious and wondering, what have you looked at? Like I said, contract amounts, etc.
Yeah.
If you could.
Very, very good question, and reasonable question. So your plan is self-funded. Right? And so what that means is you're your own insurance company. And the district has chosen that path for a lot of really good reasons, and it makes a lot of sense for the district to retain and maintain a self-funded program. You hire vendors to administer the plan, provide the contracts that you're talking about, provide the access to the different doctors and do the medical management and do all of those things. You set your benefits, you set the rules around what coverage is how coverage is established and what is covered. The process that we go through is, this is the mathematical element of the process to say, okay, we believe that to be properly funded based on your current benefits, your current population, and your current usage for next year, this is what you need to do. Should the district choose to do other things around that, you can. You could modify benefits, like the benefit option changes that are here. Could you reduce a benefit, change something, limit what providers could be gone to? There could be other impacts. That was not considered as part of this exercise. The vendors that you use are essentially locked in right now, so that wouldn't be on the table necessarily for this exercise, at least not today. So the answer to your question is no, nothing else is considered other than just the straight math of, here's the experience, here's what we believe it will be like for next year.
Okay, so thank you for answering that. So that's what I was curious, if you just purely looked at this, or if there would be somebody else who would look at all those other ideas. Would that be you, Mackenzie, who would research or look into that, or would that be you guys, or HR, or who would?
Yeah, I think benefits would take the lead on that, and then we would work in collaboration with legal and business. But like to Lloyd's point, our contracts that we have with our current vendors and carriers right now are locked in for a certain number of years. And so because we have contractually binded ourselves to those, it's not going to impact our premium rate increase for 2026.
And I'll just add to that. I mean, especially for those of you that are newer to the group, when those vendor contracts are looked at, all of that is taken into consideration to make sure that the district is engaging with vendors that are going to give them the best deals over the long term, and both for contracts and for administration of their plan. So I don't want it to come across that it's not ever considered. It absolutely is considered. That's just not part of this method, this process.
I was just mostly curious on, because we are self-funded, not necessarily the vendors per se, unless it was certain things that we would be able to. I wasn't sure when our negotiations were for those contracts. However, I'm just thinking about the things that we do choose to cover, because I know there are some things that are very underutilized and could be potentially a way to help offset that cost. So I guess that's more of where my curiosity was on who would be able to determine or research or locate some cost benefit savings on the other side versus just looking at the reality of it's going to go up, it's going to go up. I guess I'm thinking kind of like 3 steps ahead. That's just how my brain always is. But thank you for answering that for me.
Gwen?
Sorry, I have another question, just to simplify this for me, and maybe everyone else gets this, but I want to make sure I understand. So then these are the increase to the plans. Does that that's in addition to these proposed plan changes?
Again, Lloyd Barnes. No, they're two separate exercises. So the projection is our recommendation and projection is that the plan needs to increase funding by 10% if you do nothing else. If you don't do anything else. If you wanted to make changes to the benefits, this would be the impact to that 10% that would potentially reduce that 10%. Should you go to a $750 deductible, we would suggest that would reduce that 10% by about 0.8%.
Okay, so then if you said, we don't want to change anything, the rate changes alone would cover that 10%. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting to say my name. One more, just for the record. So then if if people said, we don't want to change anything with the plans.
The 10% would hold.
Okay.
Correct.
Are there any other questions for Lloyd?
I have one. Sorry.
Brenda?
Brenda
go ahead.
Costello for the record. So on the HSA plan changes deductible, option 1 has required, and that it's not listed anywhere else. So why is that required? What is that? Thanks.
Great question. Thank you for clarifying or pointing that out. HSA plans, qualified high deductible / HSA plan offerings have to follow federal IRS rules. And just like 401ks and 403b, they index up a little bit how much you can put into them. The IRS says that for HSA accounts, they index up the amount you can contribute, but they also index up the minimum deductible amounts, and that is what is projected or is required for 2026 for the HSA minimum deductible to remain embedded like the current structure of your plan. A little bit more of an explanation than you probably want, but sorry.
Rachel, did you have a question?
No, I'm wondering if we're moving to discussion.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. Okay. Joseph, did you have any questions on this item?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we can move on to the discussion portion. Lloyd, do you mind staying just in case there's any questions that pop up? Okay, thank you. Oh, all right, thanks. Do we have any public comment? Okay, thank you. All right. Rachel, would you like to start?
Yeah. Okay, Lloyd, I really appreciate this document because I know the last couple of years we've piecemealed this, and so this as an entire setup has been really very nice. Just in reviewing these, we as a body have the last several years been rather opposed to making some piecemeal changes to our plans. However, looking at a 10% increase, I wonder if we need to look at some of these more piecemeal options to balance out a little more of that for our members.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any other comments or discussion from the committee members? You know, 10% rate hike is significant. Typically what we've done in the past is had Lloyd come in, give us this information, think more about it, get input from members, and then come back at a future meeting. We're still okay to do that. Do we need an action on that, or are we okay to just not take action on this?
No, what you would do is you would move to continue the item until the next agendized
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. So it's a lot to take in today. I don't expect a decision, and I think we should continue with the process we typically have. So if there isn't any further discussion on this item, then I would entertain a motion along the lines of. Oh, okay. Rachel, please.
Okay, this is just to make sure that my recollection is correct. At this current point, I do believe we have a rather healthy fund balance, but it has been losing money. Is that the correct recollection?
Yes. Sorry, I'm pulling the report that was presented to us. I think it was in February. And we had taken down our fund balance from 31.5 million to 21.7 million halfway through the year. So a $9.8 million decrease in fund balance. And a lot of that had to do with the significant large claims we had last year, or last calendar year, which is part of the reason we have that fund balance, but it's not quite as high as it was though over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
Looking at the first quarter of this calendar year, our fund balance went down to 21 million.
Are there any other questions or comments before we look for a motion from anyone? No, nothing. Okay, with that, then I would entertain a motion. Rachel?
So this is Rachel Drake for the record. I move that we continue this agenda item at our next meeting.
Do we have a second?
Kaylee Krenz, I second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Joseph. Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate your time today. We will move next back to item 2.02, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Insurance Wellness Program Report to cover current events and programs for presentation and discussion only, and Mackenzie Howren will lead this discussion.
Thank you, Jeff. That's okay. Okay, while they pull these up, we have a few updates on a few different events and updates that are happening in the wellness program. The first is we wanted to share an update on a Medicare training that we hosted in April. So at the end of April, we partnered with a local organization to offer a Medicare training that gave an overview of all of the different parts of Medicare, what the deductibles, out-of-pocket maxes are, what the coverage looks like. When our members turn 65, if they are retired, then Medicare serves as their primary coverage and we serve as their secondary. That change for many of our employees, because they're on our coverage for so long, tends to be pretty difficult. But us on the benefits team serve as experts on our plan, not on Medicare. And so we were fortunate enough to partner with someone in the community who is a trusted individual in this space. We had just over 50 retirees and employees show up. The awesome part about this is we opened it up to all people. So if they had a friend or a spouse that wanted to attend to learn alongside them, they were welcome to come. Overall, the feedback was very positive, and we're looking to host something like this again in the future. Our next update and news we wanted to share about was our health insurance premium discount. So in 2026, we are going to be shifting what's required for the health insurance premium discount from solely the health assessment to now a PCP visit, so a primary care physician visit, and the health assessment. So the PCP visit can be completed at any time throughout the year. So if you visit your PCP for an annual wellness visit, anytime between January 1st of 2025 to December 31st of 2025, you will earn the health premium discount in 2026. We recognize that this change is relatively large and access for some individuals could be difficult. And so we are going to still offer wellness screenings in the fall. And this year, the wellness screenings can be used as a substitute for the PCP visit if people are having a difficult time accessing a PCP. The requirement of who needs to complete this has not changed. So this still stands for any employee, employee spouse, retiree, or retiree spouse on our health insurance.
Mackenzie, I have a question. You said this year the wellness screening can be a substitute. Is that just for this year, or is this going to be ongoing into the future as well?
So we currently have a really good participation in our PCP visits. We have over 70% of our members who are eligible for this to already completing their PCP visit.
Okay.
So based on the increase or decrease that we see this year, we'll reevaluate if we need that supplement again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rachel?
So Rachel Drake. So my curiosity in reviewing annual visit, so often things that are an annual visit don't get coded as an annual visit, like a first visit with a practitioner or who knows what else. Are we going to have a really broad definition of what an annual visit is and what it gets coded as?
Good question, Rachel. You can come to any of our meetings that we have because we talk about health insurance coding way more than I ever want to. Because it's difficult, right? You can schedule an annual wellness visit and then go and get diagnosed with something that you weren't anticipating, and then it's coded differently than you were planning originally, right? If we go to the next slide, we have bucketed some themes on why we're adding this requirement, and they are to promote preventative health, reduce healthcare costs, increase engagement with health benefits, implement some form of risk management when it comes to our members' health, and then reward healthy choices. And so the intention behind this change is not to be punitive or punish employees and retirees for some funky health insurance coding, right? So we're working really closely with Anthem right now to have accurate reporting on a very frequent basis. We're looking to do this weekly to ensure that employees who do visit a PCP are being tracked purely just for going to the PCP visit, not just for the actual coding. Yeah.
Thank you. So I just also want to make sure that this includes visits done through Live Health and all of the things that we've been pushing at our members to say, hey, these are healthy ways that you can engage with the healthcare community, and please do this.
Yep, any form of a virtual care PCP visit is going to count. Any PCP visit, like I said, that's happened already to this point is going to count. The main purpose for this change is for our members to be more engaged with a trusted healthcare provider, right? A lot of research shows that if people have a strong relationship with their PCP, their health outcomes are likely to be better. And following up on our premium rate increase ask, right? We know that part of the reason why we're spending so much in the health insurance fund is because we're accessing care more. So anytime that we can start to drive people towards more preventative behaviors, it's going to benefit not only them, right? Because we care about our members first, and then it's going to help the fund. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have another question here. So if this probably all work itself out, which give me a second. So if we're going to require people to go to their primary care physician, then that's going to increase cost in the health insurance fund, right? Because, okay. But if they're completing that and the assessment will reduce revenues and the need for wellness screenings or as many wellness screenings in the wellness fund, so that kind of offsets. But then the goal here is for long-term, we decrease costs in the health insurance fund.
Yep.
So it all, in theory, should work itself out over time.
Yeah, which I know is your favorite thing to hear in business, right?
Yeah.
It's going to work itself out
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you're asking a really good question that's founded a lot in public health research, right? And if I can engage people with preventative care, engage in early screenings, I will see an increase in cost in the beginning. But the cost comparison of early screening, early preventative care versus treatment, right? People visiting the hospital or ER is much more expensive compared to those initial screenings and PCP visits.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I am happy to see that we'll continue the wellness screenings this year, because I know for some folks it's difficult to go to an appointment at any time during the year. So I think the combination of both are encouraging the PCP and the wellness screenings should be beneficial. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the why behind the PCP visit, but why we're still going to continue to include the health assessment is because this is we all know here on this committee that we have a very high participation level for a health assessment. And so we don't want to lose that insight that we have with all of our members. So the reason behind why we're keeping the health assessment is to promote preventative health, analyze trends, reward healthy choices as well. So on the analyze trends space, this is a really awesome opportunity for us to look into behavior change readiness. So we not only get insight into how people feel about their health, but we also get insight into if they're ready to make a change. Before I move on, any questions on the PCP or the health assessment? No? Okay, tell all of your friends. The next update is an event that we're hosting in the next month or so. At the end of July, we're going to offer a mammogram van. I'm sure you've maybe seen them before. It's the big 18-wheeler van. They pull up and park in this front parking lot, and they can screen up to 22 employees that day. This is a great example of encouraging our members and providing access for our members to engage in early screening. We're also going to partner with the Reno Cancer Coalition, who sets up a table outside of the van to provide additional educational materials for employees on breast cancer. Question?
Yeah, thank you, Mackenzie. Do you happen to know what the cost of this is for the one day?
It's free, right? Yeah.
It's free?
It's all free.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Are we able to get more of these for free than just the one day? The reason I ask is, it's a really good thing, but then I see against this screening provides up to 22 screenings for employees, and we have
About
significantly
12,000
more than
hours.
22 employees.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the proactive approach, but is there a way we could have more of this for free, or do we just get this one day for free?
So I do know that this specific mammogram van books up very, very early. But if we see that we have a high participation rate and there's more interest in other locations, we can definitely try to work with them farther in advance and make it more consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we've had this here before, have we had the full participation?
The last
Yeah.
time that we had this, we had 19 employees complete.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Can
Yes,
Can
Kaylee?
I
Go ahead.
add to that question a little bit? Kaylee Krenz for the record. Do you think that adding on to, what Jeff was asking about having more, I think that there would be more participation if we had, at least maybe like 3 more in different parts of town. Because when I worked at the district office, it was great because, everything was here, yay. But now that I work in North Valleys, it's very difficult for employees to access programs like this. So just wanting to think, put up into the universe on top of Jeff's question
Yeah.
/ comment,
Yeah.
if that's something you'd be willing to look into as well for like our outlying areas.
Yeah, expanding services and right? Like when we start talking about reasons why people have difficulties accessing care, right? The location behind that access plays a big role. And that's where things like the mammogram van are very successful. But internally, right, addressing and evaluating how we can expand this access to our whole district, right, with over 100 locations, is a puzzle but challenge that we're up for. Yeah. Okay, any questions on the mammogram van? No? Everyone remember to wear pink on July 23rd. Okay. Another really exciting update. We are going to bring back the Wellness Fair, but we are going to rebrand it into the Benefits Wellness Fest, a Be Well Fest. This will be held on Saturday, September 20th at Hug High School. We're going to have community vendors, raffle prizes, guest speakers. There's going to be fitness classes offered on site. We're going to have some games like pickleball and tennis, hopefully weather permitting, right? And then it's a benefits fair as well because we're going to offer early access and support for open enrollment at that time as well. We're hoping for it to be a one-stop shop for all of our members to initiate some behavior change in the upcoming school year. And our last update from the wellness program is we have joined the City of Reno Corporate Challenge. And so this is where we will have the opportunity to compete against other companies of a similar size in Olympic style games. So this is a 3-week period where we get to compete against other organizations. It starts in September and ends at the end of September. We've had a lot of interest in this, but this is just some insight into the different types of competitions that we'll get to participate in. Everyone can thank me. I have not signed up to participate in any of these, but I am a great cheerleader. So it'll be a great way for other employees to engage and come and support their fellow coworkers as they participate in these Olympic style games. Any questions on this one?
No. All right. Joseph?
Yeah.
Joseph, any questions on this item?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, Mackenzie, for the wellness update. We'll move on to item 2.04, approval of the minutes of the February 26, 2025 Group Insurance Committee meeting. And this is for possible action. Do we have any public comment on this item? No? Thank you. And once everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at them, I will entertain a motion on this one as well. Gwen?
Gwen Partos, I move that to approve the minutes from the February 26, 2025 meeting.
Rachel Drake, second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion on this item? No? Okay. Then we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Joseph. All those opposed, nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. That brings us to our closing items, item 3.01, public comment. Do we have any general public comment? No? Okay. Then our next meeting is scheduled to be on June 25th, 2025. We'll continue the rate discussion then. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 4:52 p.m. Thanks, everyone.